One night changed history forever. An entire nation was trapped. Behind them stood the most powerful army the world had ever known. Before them nothing but the sea. No escape, no hope, only one man, armed with nothing but a shepherd's staff. His name was Moses. But to understand how that extraordinary night began, we must go back to the birth of a child who was never meant to survive. Egypt had reached the peak of its power, but there was one fear that even Pharaoh could not escape. The Hebrew people were growing rapidly, and the prophecy of a Hebrew deliverer who would one day set Israel free filled the king with fear. So, a decree was proclaimed. Every Hebrew baby boy born from that day forward was sentenced to die, but at that very moment one child came into the world. His mother looked at her little boy and made a choice that would change history forever. For 3 long months she managed to keep him hidden, but time was running out. Every cry could reveal their family's hiding place. With no other choice, she carefully wove a small basket from papyrus reeds. Then she sealed every inch of it so it could safely float on the waters of the Nile River. With tears in her eyes, she gently placed the little boy inside the basket. Then, in complete silence, she entrusted her greatest treasure into God's hands. The basket touched the water and slowly drifted away through the reeds along the Nile. That very same morning, Pharaoh's daughter made her way to the Nile. To her, it was just another ordinary day. But in that very moment, her life and the destiny of an entire nation were about to change forever. Slowly, she stepped closer. Hidden among the reeds was a small basket. As she lifted the lid, she found a baby boy. In that moment, she knew the child was Hebrew. But instead of turning away, her heart was filled with compassion. In that little boy, the fate of Egypt was already beginning to change. Pharaoh's daughter chose to spare his life, and she gave him a name, Moses, because she had drawn him out of the water. The boy who was meant to die now lived inside Pharaoh's palace. He was raised as a prince of Egypt. He learned the language, the customs, and the wisdom of kings. But one thing never changed his true identity. The years went by, but while Moses grew up among royalty, his people remained in chains. Day after day, they endured a life of slavery. Until one day Moses faced a choice between the comfort of the palace and the suffering of his own people. The years passed by. Moses was now a grown man. But one day he witnessed a Hebrew slave being brutally beaten. In that moment he made a choice that would change the course of his life. Driven by righteous anger, Moses stepped in. That day he was forced to flee Egypt. Little did he know that God still had a greater purpose for his life. The years passed by. Far from Egypt, Moses found a new home. He married Zipporah, and together they built a family. Soon their children began to grow. Living among the wilderness and the flocks, the former prince had become nothing more than a shepherd. For 40 years those mountains were his home, until one day everything changed forever. While tending his flock along the slopes of Mount Horeb, Moses noticed a bush engulfed in flames, yet the fire never consumed it. Curious, he drew closer. Then a voice called out from within the flames, "Moses, Moses, do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. I am the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. I have seen the suffering of my people. I have heard their cries and I know their pain, so I have come down to rescue them, and now I am sending you to Pharaoh. You will lead my people out of Egypt." Moses replied, "But what if they don't believe me?" "What if they say, 'The Lord never appeared to you'?" Then God asked, "What is that in your hand?" "A staff. Throw it on the ground." Then God said, "Reach out your hand. Take it by the tail." Moses obeyed. Before his very eyes, the serpent became a staff once again. Then God said, "This is how they will know that I have sent you." Still, Moses hesitated. Then God said, Put your hand inside your cloak." Moses obeyed. When he pulled it out, his hand was covered with leprosy. Then God said, "Put it back." When he drew it out again, it was completely healed. Still Moses answered, "My Lord, I am not a gifted speaker." Then God said, "I will be with your mouth, and Aaron will speak for you." The very next morning, Moses began his journey back to Egypt. After many years, Moses returned to Egypt. In the wilderness, God had fulfilled his promise. There Moses met his brother Aaron. The two embraced. Then together they set out to stand before Pharaoh. Before Pharaoh's throne, Moses declared, "This is what the Lord says, let my people go." But Pharaoh hardened his heart, and he answered, "Who is the Lord that I should obey him?" Pharaoh ignored the warning. Then God commanded Moses to stretch out his staff over the Nile. In an instant the first plague struck. The waters turned to blood. The fish died. The river reeked, and all of Egypt was left without water to drink. But once again Pharaoh hardened his heart. Then the second plague came. Thousands of frogs poured out of the Nile. They covered the houses, the palaces, the bedrooms, and the kitchens. There wasn't a single place in Egypt where they could not be found. Pharaoh promised to let the people go, but when the plague ended, he changed his mind. Then the third plague came. God commanded Aaron to strike the dust with his staff. In an instant, all the dust of Egypt became gnats. They covered the people, the animals, and the land. Even Egypt's magicians could not replicate it. Then they said, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh kept his heart hardened. Then the fourth plague came. Massive swarms of flies invaded all of Egypt. Then the fifth plague struck. A deadly plague swept through Egypt's livestock. Horses, camels, oxen, sheep, and countless other animals died across the land. Then the sixth plague came. Moses threw ashes into the sky. Painful boils broke out on people and animals throughout Egypt. Then the seventh plague came, a devastating hailstorm unlike anything Egypt. Then the eighth plague came. Vast swarms of locusts darkened the sky. They devoured every plant that had survived the hailstorm. Then the ninth plague came. A supernatural darkness covered all of Egypt for 3 days. No one could see or leave where they were, yet in the homes of the Israelites there was light. Then the 10th plague came. God gave one final instruction to the people of Israel. Every family was to sacrifice a spotless lamb. Its blood was to be placed on the doorposts. That night, when the Lord passed through the land of Egypt, every marked house would be spared. This was the beginning of the first Passover. That night Egypt fell silent. Then at midnight, the 10th plague struck. Every home in Egypt was filled with mourning, for the Lord struck down every firstborn. But every family who obeyed God's command remained safe. Before dawn, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. With a broken voice, Pharaoh said, "Get up, leave my people, you and all the Israelites, go and worship the Lord as you have asked." That morning, after more than 400 years, the people of Israel left Egypt. Before dawn, the people began their journey. Men, women, and children gathered their belongings. The flocks moved ahead as a countless multitude left Egypt. After more than 400 years of slavery, Israel was finally walking toward freedom. Leading them all was Moses, his staff in his hands. But God did not leave them to walk alone. By day, a great pillar of cloud went before them, guiding their way through the wilderness. When night fell, the cloud became a magnificent pillar of fire. Its light illuminated their path, allowing Israel to keep moving, even in the darkness. It was the unmistakable proof that God was walking with his people. As Israel journeyed through the wilderness, a massive cloud of dust appeared on the horizon. It was Pharaoh's army. Hundreds of war chariots, thousands of soldiers and horsemen were closing in fast. When the people looked back, panic swept through the camp. Ahea was the Red Sea. Behind them, the most powerful army on earth was drawing near. It seemed there was no way out. The people began to question Moses. But he answered, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Then God moved the pillar of cloud. It no longer stood before the people. Instead, it stood between Israel and the Egyptian army. To the Egyptians, there was darkness. But for Israel, the night was filled with light. All through that night, neither side could approach the other. Then God said to Moses, "Moses, raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea." Moses lifted his staff. At that very moment, a mighty east wind began to blow. It did not blow for a few moments. It blew all through the night. Little by little, the waters began to draw back, and before the eyes of Israel, the impossible was happening. The waters rose like towering walls, on the right and on the left. Between them a path appeared, completely dry. Then Moses took the first step, and all the people of Israel crossed the sea on dry ground. When the last of the Israelites reached the opposite shore, Pharaoh's army entered the very same path. Then God spoke again to Moses, "Moses, stretch out your staff once more." At daybreak, the waters returned with all their force. The chariots, the horses, and all of Pharaoh's army were swallowed by the sea. That day, Israel knew that the Lord had fought for them. From a basket among the reeds to the waters of the Red Sea, God transformed a child marked for death into the man who would set free an entire nation. And thousands of years later, the story of Moses continues to inspire generations around the world. 3 months after leaving Egypt, the people of Israel arrived at Mount Sinai. It was there that Moses climbed the mountain to meet with God. On the summit, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. They would become the foundation of Israel's laws and one of the most influential teachings in history. The commandments were, love God above all else, do not worship idols, honor God's name, set apart one day to rest and worship God, honor your father and your mother, do not take another person's life, be faithful to your husband or your wife, do not steal, do not bear false witness or lie, do not covet what belongs to your neighbor. Thousands of years later, these commandments continue to guide millions of people around the world. May Jesus bless you all, and I'll see you in the next video.